Hi, my name is Kate Evans, and in this EdCA 200 assignment, I'll be comparing one historical Canadian adult education program, Frontier College, with a contemporary counterpart, Literacy Victoria. To advance through the presentation, please use the arrow buttons at the bottom of the screen or your computer's arrow keys. During this presentation, I'll be examining two education programs that deal with adult literacy. Please keep the following discussion question in mind as you make your way through the presentation. Frontier College and Literacy Victoria both endeavour to reduce barriers for adult learners in need of the most basic skill development. In relation to the barriers we've studied in Week 3, please discuss which, if any, barriers exist and suggest ways in which they could be reduced. Originally known as the Canadian Reading Camp Association, Frontier College was founded by Alfred Fitzpatrick, a Presbyterian minister in Ontario in 1899. Fitzpatrick believed he could contribute to the creation of good Canadian citizens by addressing the literacy needs of immigrant workers in isolated labour camps across the country. To do so, he placed university undergrads in the camps to work with the labourers by day and to teach them reading, writing, math, and citizenship skills in reading tents during the evenings. By 1913, there were labourer teachers working in isolated camps in almost every province of Canada. This 1911 photo shows founder Alfred Fitzpatrick, third from the left, and Dr. Norman Bethune with legs straddled, one of the original labourer teachers. They are at Martin's Camp, run by the Victoria Harbour Lumber Company in Ontario. In this video, labourer teacher Dr. Spock works with immigrant workers in the lumber camp by day and tutors them in a reading tent at night. Listen for the mention of Dr. Norman Bethune, the labourer teacher featured in the previous photo. Click the presentation arrow below to start the video.
Frank, you make $6 a week. You work 28 weeks. So, you multiply the first number.
Oh, Dr. Spock, can't it wait till we get to the reading tent? I can't do it in my head.
Dude, Frank, give it a go.
Yeah, okay. So it's 28 times 6? Okay. Yep.
That's good, Charlie. Now a whole page of big M's and small M's, okay?
Trembled as she touched her lips to his.
Go get up.
Dr. Spock, you know you ain't the first doctor to come in here working. There was a guy named Bethune. Yeah, Norman Bethune.
Oh, yeah, I heard of him. What was he like?
It was okay. Didn't treat us all like little kids the way you do anyhow.
Starting in 1899, a movement of volunteer teachers brought literacy and numbers to work camps across the country, evolved into Frontier College, and now, a century later, has taught reading and basic skills to millions of Canadians.
Founded in 1988, Literacy Victoria is a non-profit society that provides cost-free adult basic education to Victoria's most marginalized community members, including the working poor, homeless, incarcerated, transient, and newly immigrated. It is the oldest community-based adult literacy organization in BC. It aims to improve quality of life by ensuring that society's most vulnerable members can function effectively and contribute meaningfully to it. This image comes from Literacy Victoria's website, www.literacyvictoria.org. It is estimated that 1/3 of BC's population currently experiences challenges with basic literacy, demonstrating the need for their services. In August 2014, amid funding reductions and rising operational costs, Literacy Victoria was forced to close its doors. In March 2015, a scaled-down version of the program reopened with smaller facilities and reduced staff. Tutoring sessions now take place at local public libraries and coffee shops instead of the Literacy Victoria office. Links below lead to newspaper articles describing the closure and subsequent reopening. Several social, political, and economic factors set the stage for Frontier College's debut in Canada at the turn of the 19th century. Largely rural, with an economy based on resource extraction and a need to build infrastructure to unite the country, there was a high demand for physical labor. As a result, immigrants from around the world were encouraged to seek a fresh start in Canada, and thousands of foreigners streamed into the country to labor in isolated fishing, mining, forestry, and construction camps. In addition, religious and social reform movements at the time were intent on uplifting the working class to higher social and intellectual levels. Dominant Anglo-Protestant ideals included the assimilation of foreigners, and education and social reform were seen as ways to build a nation of good Canadian citizens. Literacy Victoria operates within the affluent capital city of British Columbia, which sits on unceded Algonquin territory. It is a largely urban setting with high housing costs and a mild climate. Today, the economy is knowledge-based. Key employers include the provincial government, the University of Victoria, and the information technology sector. The city has a large homeless population and a history shaped by the marginalization of those outside the mainstream, including displaced Indigenous people, immigrant laborers, and those with physical and mental health issues. Social policy at the provincial level is influenced by conservative ideology, yet local governments tend to be more liberal-leaning. Frontier College's most distinguishing feature was its use of laborer teachers as agents of change. According to Morrison, they acted to educate, acculturate, and Canadianize the immigrant and/or illiterate Canadian by pedagogy or by deed. The concept of taking learning to the people as opposed to bringing the people to learning sets Frontier College apart, as did its cost-free services and the use of laborer-teacher wages from the camps to help fund the college. Literacy Victoria is the only Victoria provider of free one-on-one tutoring for adults over 18. It uses volunteer tutors from a variety of backgrounds and takes care to match tutors to learners based on goodness of fit between them. After an initial needs assessment at the Literacy Victoria offices, tutoring takes place in public spaces such as libraries and coffee shops. Literacy Victoria provides a mobile library for people living on the street and partners with local jails to bring library services and literacy instruction to inmates. Funding is provided through partnerships between government and non-government organizations. Frontier College was built on the progressive philosophy of education, in which education is viewed as important for both personal and societal improvement and the promotion of democracy. It focused on active rather than passive learning and on building the capacity of individual citizens to produce social reform. Today, Frontier College's philosophy of learning and teaching still encompasses these ideas and include literacy and learning are a right for all, enhanced literacy enables better participation in communities, barriers are reduced when tutors go to learners, a learner-centered approach in which learners decide what they want to learn, learning occurs everywhere, and learners, volunteers, and partners all contribute to the learning experience. Literacy Victoria was developed on the humanistic philosophy. Its goal is to maximize human growth while focusing on the dignity and autonomy of learners. It seeks to help learners develop to their full potential while using a student-centered approach that emphasizes lifelong adult learning principles. After World War I, the Canadian government gave Frontier College the right to grant university degrees. However, after limited success, they returned to their primary focus, basic adult literacy for workers at isolated work camps. With the influx of European immigrants in the 1940s and 50s, the need for English language instruction in urban centers increased, and by the 1960s, machines had begun to replace humans for basic manual labor, reducing the need for work camps. Thus, Frontier College shifted its focus from rural literacy development to urban community development, including providing literacy instruction to the homeless, Indigenous populations, and in prisons. Despite the changing landscape of the college, they continue to use laborer teachers on farms employing migrant workers in Ontario and recruit university undergrads to work as volunteer tutors in the city. The following video describes the college's latest foray into online learning as it shifts to keep up with modern needs. Frontier College and Literacy Victoria strive to increase access to basic education for marginalized members of communities. They act as advocates for underserved populations and have as their purpose the betterment of individuals and society. Much of their work is done by unpaid volunteers. Frontier College is a national program with branches in every province. It has a broad funding base and a long history aimed at citizenship education and literacy for adults. Its roots and progressive philosophies stem from the desire to bring progress and a sense of nationalism to a young country undergoing rapid industrialization and population growth. Conversely, Literacy Victoria is a community-based organization that is locally funded. It has a short history and evolved from literacy projects aimed at children. It leans toward humanism as its guiding philosophy, focusing on the betterment of society through individual growth and satisfaction. Deggs and Miller state, "It is arguable that all types of adult education programs have a common core mission, the enhancement of communities through the education of individuals, through positively influencing identity development and power over life choices." Both Frontier College and Literacy Victoria accomplish this. Frontier College contributed to the building of Canada as a country by helping shape the identities of the men it educated and empowering them to become contributing members of the society. It provided workers with the means to communicate in the language of power, enabling them to learn to become good citizens and exercise their democratic freedoms. And by reducing the barriers to education, Frontier College provided laborers with the opportunity to realize their worth and imagine a future for themselves in this country. Literacy Victoria contributes to the positive identity development of its learners and the enhancement of the community by increasing the social capital of those who currently have little, thereby increasing self-worth and worth perceived by others, increasing the understanding of the value of education, not only to those who are receiving it, but to those who marginalize vulnerable members of the society, and reducing barriers such as costs, ensuring education is available to all. As mentioned earlier, my discussion question centers on barriers imposed by Frontier College and/or Literacy Victoria. Remember that barriers include those created and sustained by institutional, situational, dispositional, academic, pedagogical, and employment training factors. Thank you for your attention through this presentation. I look forward to responding to your questions and discussion points.